Define ready. Define ready.
That's right, okay.
Beta's on the clock. Ready?
Yes.
Begin.
The death of one man is a tragedy. The death of millions is a statistic. Joseph Stalin. The Gulag was a system of forced labor camps established during Joseph Stalin's reign as dictator of the Soviet Union. The notorious prisons, which incarcerated about 18 million people throughout their history, operated from the 1920s until shortly after Stalin's death in 1953. At its height, the Gulag network included hundreds of labor camps that held anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 people each. Conditions in the Gulag were brutal. Prisoners could be required to work up to 14 hours a day, often in extreme weather. Many died of starvation, disease, or exhaustion. Others were simply executed. When Stalin launched his purges, a wide variety of laborers known as political prisoners were transported to the Gulag camps. Opposing members of the Communist Party, military officers, and government officials were among the first targeted. Later, educated people and ordinary citizens, doctors, writers, intellects, students, artists, and scientists were also sent to the Gulag system. According to History.com, quote, "The dark history of the Gulag has left generations of Russians scared and damaged. Even today, some survivors are too fearful to discuss their experiences. I find that this is irrefutable proof that torture is one of the most effective means of suppressing groups that pose a threat to national security."
You ready?
Contention. It is morally wrong to destroy life, and torture destroys life. In this article, magazine.campbell.edu says Red McDaniel was brutally tortured as a POW in Vietnam, but survived 6 years in captivity thanks to his faith and family. Over the 40 years, he's still fighting for his co-pilot and men still listed as mission in action. I would like to define some terms like morals. Morals are concerned with the principles or rules of right conduct, or the distinction between right and wrong. I would also like to define life. Life is abundant of material, comfort, luxurious, and happiness. I would also like to define destroy. Destroy is to put to an end to exist of something by damage or attacking. In this article, ndpr.nd.edu, if you ask a social psychologist what is wrong with morality, and they would answer, morality doesn't get what it demands. It tells us the right things to do, but we do the wrong things anyways. In this article, justice.gov, it states that section 2340A of Title 18 United States Code prohibits torture committed by public officials under color of law against persons within the public official's custody or control.
Anyone want planning time?
30 seconds.
On the clock. 30 seconds.
Okay, so one thing that we can take right away is
You're the crossfire for the
one thing is say
15 seconds.
Social media, they didn't know like where she got from, where that group came from.
Time. Ready for cross?
Yes.
Yes. Alright, so you brought up a POW that was tortured in Vietnam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Geneva Convention states that the torture of POWs is not allowed, right? However, when it comes to terrorism, these people are already not following the rules of the Geneva Convention. So how would you justify that? I mean, if they're not following the rules, why should we?
Well, torture is that Vietnam person suffered through torture because of his life and what happened in that, like what I said, I got it from that article.
Okay, so then, how could torture, so torture is just morally wrong, right? So, we're gonna ignore the, let's see, 4 deadliest terrorist groups responsible for the most deaths in 2021 for the Islamic State, Al-Shabaab, Taliban, and Jamaat al-Islam, and many more. Let's see, 3,364 deaths from terrorism. So, and that represented 47% of the total deaths in 2021. So you think that torture should not be used against individuals or groups like this?
Well, I have a thing. What was your contention again? Because apparently you.
My contention was torture is one of the most effective means of suppressing groups that pose a threat to national security.
But you also said members of the government were targeted and sent to labor camp.
Yes, I did, but I was showing that there's examples of of torture tactics working to suppress groups of people, not only just regular people, but government officials and so on and so forth.
Well then, like, why? Could you explain why? How did torture affect them then?
Torture in,
Yeah, how did torture affect their morals and like all of their things during these camps that you stated?
they were so fearful that they won't even talk about their experiences. That is how bad it affected them. And there was even some Russian officials that left Germany and refused to go back because of how bad it was. So I guess I ask, is torture not justified as a means of keeping our country safe?
Torture is. What was your contention again? Because I cannot understand.
Torture is one of the most effective means of suppressing groups that pose a threat to national security.
That's your time.
So when it's so locked in, you got the time.
Anyone want planning time? No?
No.
All right, next speaker, are you ready?
I'm gonna just get this straight away. I'm gonna bring up 9/11, the factor that everyone in this room is indeed an American citizen, and everybody knows about the events or some way that it took place. And I just wanna have the definition of what torture is for the individual that had been tortured to find out who, when, where Osama bin Laden was. And the definition of torture is the action or practice of inflicting severe pain or suffering on someone as a punishment or in order to force them to do or say something. So back to the 9/11 thing, that's the most horrific thing ever, and we tortured probably like 2 to 3 people at tops. just to use torture for 2 to 3 people and try to get those lives back of all the people that died on that day is very beneficial to my side of this, because it's obvious there's thousands upon thousands of people that died. There's firefighters that died. It could have been your mom, your grandma, your sister, your great aunt, the list goes on. How would you feel knowing that we have the resources to use to get to the person that planned this out and not be able to use it? Is very sad if you do think in that direction. As President Trump stated, that torture does work. Clearly, we've used it in World War II, we've used it in Vietnam, we've used it in most, if not all, major wars. And if we did not use it, would we be sitting here today? Probably not. Facts over evidence there. Where I got this information was ideas.repc.org. Back to what President Trump said, his office released a draft of orders stating an intention to make modifications and additions to the policies of torture so that it fits everybody's go around, and that it should be safe, lawful, and effective interrogation of enemy, combat, capture, and fight against racial things. Another good reason is, again, what he said of the whole gulag thing in Russia. I'm changing up subjects a lot because it's amazing how torture can work so amazingly that, again, I wouldn't be standing here giving a speech about this if we did not win those wars. And yeah.
Anyone want planning time?
We're good.
All right, next speaker ready?
Yeah.
Begin.
My contention: torture does not work for information gathering. Torture, an act of inflicting physical or psychological pain on someone as a method of punishment or interrogation purposes. According to neuroscientist Shane O'Mara's book, Why Torture Doesn't Work, The Neuroscience of Interrogation, he says that there is no evidence-based case for torture and that the research actually shows that torture is highly ineffective for information gathering. O'Mara also states that the imposition of behavioral and physiological stressors affect the memory functions. He says that it reduces the veracity or accuracy of the information that the tortured can produce, and that the use and persistence of torture has disastrous effects on the brains of the victims. With other researchers' previous studies, O'Mara proves that being exposed to significant periods of stress produces gaps in recent memories. His study is particularly compelling because the subjects were chosen due to their capacity to handle stress, which means that it would have taken a lot more to break them than it would a normal person. He also talks about other studies, such as one done by the National Center of Biotechnology Information, that show that torture reduces cognitive performances. In a quote by Mark Fallon, a former counter-terror official for the United States government, he said, "Torture produces corrupted information. It is more than ineffective, it is counterproductive. This corrupted information leads to flawed decisions and policies at the highest levels, and we have lost lives because of those flawed decisions." According to Nina Holm Anderson, empathy, not sympathy, is key in interviewing suspects. She stressed that while interrogating Anders Breivik, who committed terrorism in Norway and killed 77 people, it was important that she established rapport and made sure he was feeling listened to. She said that by creating an environment where they feel comfortable, it will make them more talkative and increase the likelihood of them revealing incriminating information and a more complete account of what they have done and how. Investigators are thus able to obtain more reliable, actionable information. And according to UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zeid Ra'ad al-Hussein, even Napoleon Bonaparte refused to let his generals use torture because it did not work. Zeid also warned against the use of torture because people see it as inhumane.
Anyone want planning time?
There 30 seconds.
Thirty seconds. Fifteen seconds. Time. Debaters ready for cross. Begin.
So are we supposed to just bring people in and give them a candy bar and pop to, you know, make sure it's not that bad and torture terrorists?
That wasn't what I said at all. First
Well,
off.
you said they're supposed to be, you know, taken care of, and, you know, their mental state and stuff
No.
has to be perfect.
You're supposed to use
So you're
empathy.
supposed to, you know, give them a candy bar, give them a pop. Yeah, you a good boy, ain't you? No, like, we gotta step it up to get the information we need to make sure our country is safe.
Are you done patronizing me?
Just doing what the topic's about.
What was your contention?
My contention is that we need to make sure the American people are safe.
Okay. My contention was that torture my contention is that torture does not work for information gathering, which is a scientific fact and has been proven time and time again.
Where'd you get that information from?
Shane O'Mara's book.
A book? A book.
He is a neuroscientist.
A book.
Yes,
A book.
a neuroscientist studies
A
brains.
book. So you're telling me that all the times we used it who cares about other people's mental health? Who cares about the scientific aspect of things? Do you think people are sitting there in the chair across from the other person, sitting there thinking about their, I don't know, mental state and their psychological stuff? No, they know their job and what they did, so therefore, nobody cares. They're not an American citizen. I clearly don't care, and they shouldn't care, and that person shouldn't care. Just gotta do what you gotta do.
The more mentally unstable a person is, the more likely they will present false information.
How do you know a terrorist has mental issues?
If you use torture, they're going to be mentally unstable.
That's not
It is scientifically proven.
scientifically proven. You can't even understand a terrorist half the time.
What?
You can't even understand a terrorist half the time. They're like, do that. Like, how do you know like afterward their mental state? Then you can't understand them. As long as they point out where their location of their leader is, as long as they do what they are told to do, who cares about their mental state? We're sending them right back, or keeping them in jail here, or doing other things to them to make sure that no more information gets leaked so we don't have an issue again. Simple as, like I said, the United States, 9/11 happened on our turf. We did not get any information from them and handed them a candy bar and handed them a pop. We would not have given them the information of Osama bin Laden, and we would not be sitting here today.
That is your time. Anyone want planning time?
Can we have 15 seconds? Or 30?
Sure.
Whichever
30
works.
seconds. 30 seconds, planning time on the clock. Fifteen seconds. Time. Speakers ready for summary?
effects of torture on gaining information is still unknown, largely. Now we can say psychologically, it may break down an individual into giving a false confession, but we really don't know because our governments haven't released that information confirming or denying that 100%. However, my debate isn't whether it's effective at gathering information. My debate is its usefulness in keeping our nation secure. That is it. That is the bottom line. And the only way that I can see that happening is by torture, right? We go in, get the bad guy, the guys that go and take. Sorry, I'm shaky. This is emotional for me. These people were caught kidnapping 20,000 children. So I just think torture is more than morally righteous, just like we have criminals that get the death sentence or spend the rest of their life in jail. It's not just about getting information, it's about justice, and in some terms, maybe even revenge. That's it.
Next speaker ready?
Yeah,
Begin.
Like I said before, Red Daniel was brutally tortured and he was a survivor of Vietnam, but he's still overcoming that torture he had. And also I said, the section of 2340A of Title 18 in the United States Code prohibits torture commenced by public officials under color or law against persons within the public official's custody or control. Yeah, that's all I have.
I need
Anyone want planning time?
a minute.
1 minute planning time. One minute on the clock. Thirty seconds. Fifteen seconds. Time. Debaters ready for Grand Cross.
Yeah.
Begin.
Okay, so first things first, you brought up again the Vietnam veteran that was tortured in Vietnam, US veteran, right? And you said that he was still mentally scarred till this day, right? Correct? So you could say, right, the torture that he had to go through caused so much psychological or physical pain that he will never forget what happened in Vietnam, right? So with that logic, he's an example of what can happen if you're caught. Now, I understand that he was a POW and we have rules and regulations that say that that's not allowed, right? However, again, I'm talking about terrorists. Terrorists have already broken all of these rules and regulations, right? If we look at this book,
No, you said U.S. soldier, right?
A Vietnam soldier.
So like on our side or their side? Ours? Okay, so he got tortured by their side?
No, he was a Vietnam soldier that was in Vietnam, and he got tortured by ours.
By our side? Okay. Still true.
okay, so these terrorists are already using unconventional methods of obtaining their goals, right? So again, bring up the resistance army in Uganda, right? They abducted 276 schoolgirls in Nigeria. We call it a mass kidnapping.
What does that have to do with anything?
They're kidnapping kids in the mass. That is their army. They are already committing war crimes.
I have a question for you. You said in your speech that, or as your summary, that the information gathering part of torture is not important, but it is, because interrogation is how we gather information on why they did what we did and how to plan our next move.
Torture used as, I don't know if I said ineffective, I might have misspoke, but let me clarify. Torture as a means of gaining information. Alright, good.
How would you feel if your kid got kidnapped and you knew a person that knew the person that kidnapped your child? What would you do? Would you give him a candy bar and pop? Or would you do what's necessary to get the information you need? If it's torture, it's torture. It's gonna be torture because they're not just gonna sit there and you go, "Oh, I didn't do it. Just stand there and look pretty."
As an older brother, I can't let that happen.
Exactly. So you're going to do everything that is necessary to find where your child is, your sister is, even if it's your mom, maybe even if it's your dad. You gotta know where they are, and the only way necessarily to do it is to torture them.
That's
There's
your
no-
time.
How much time do I got left?
For planning time?
Yeah.
Both sides have 1 minute of planning time left. Anybody want planning time?
Yeah, we'll use the last full minute, because this is it's a summary, so we can't bring it back into regulation.
1 minute planning time on the clock. Seconds. Time.
If it fits.
Ready, final focus? Begin.
So basically, my summary of all this is the death of one man is a tragedy, and the death of millions is a statistic. Again, with the whole 9/11 thing, you maybe not know, maybe your cousin, maybe your whatever, died that day. We all don't know. My other summary of it is pretty obvious. It's just severe pain, and it's just a punishment on people that we bring in. We're not killing them. We're not, death is a lot worse than just giving them a good old electric on the nipples or something, I don't know. And we just need to do what we need to do in the United States of America, because we are the #1 country, and there's a lot of people that want a piece of us, and that is exactly why we need to do what we need to do to protect us, and that may involve some mental issues of the other person, that may involve absolutely beating them close to death, but just to make sure your grandpappy and your grandma are okay at home tomorrow, we need to do what we have to do.
Planning time?
Yeah, just the rest of it.
1 minute planning time.
This is a really good quote, man.
I know, no, I was looking at like, just historical.
30 seconds.
It was historical quotes by evil people that are like surprisingly sensible. And even Hitler had a fucking banger quote. I was like, God damn.
They turned my art down, so I turned their building down.
No.
15 seconds. Time. Ready for our final focus? Begin.
My opponents had very interesting contentions. I was unable to figure them out at first. They also did not use very many resources, nor were they very well spoken about. Me and my teammate, on the other hand, our contentions, we believe, were very visible and very expressed from the very beginning. And we cited our resources very clearly, and we talked about all of our backing, unlike our opponents. Our opponents said that some things were not as true, such as people not being able to talk about their experiences, which is a symptom of PTSD, and being tortured causes gaps in memory, which would also explain why they were unable to explain what happened to them, because they may not remember it, or may have faulty memories because of the torture.
Judges, do you have any questions for clarification? Remember, you are only permitted to ask questions. You may not insert your bias or offer any arguments on your own. You may only ask questions of the debaters for anything that you need clarification on in order to determine a winner. Judges, all good? All right, debaters with me. Judges, finish filling out your ballots, make your decision.